Story 1. Your health. A lot of people do not realize that something horrible can strike at any time, such as a heart attack, brain aneurysm, aortic dissection, or stroke. It doesn't matter what age you are or even if you are fit. Story 2. As a physiotherapist, I would say 1. Being able to walk. 2. Being able to talk. 3. Being able to see. 4. Being able to hear. 5. Being able to feel pain. And most importantly, 6. Being healthy. Story 3. Having the freedom to focus on things like hobbies or finding your passion instead of just basic human needs like keeping a roof over your head and food in your stomach. Story 4. Employment. Working can be difficult, but unemployment is even more challenging. It's very common in my country, the United Kingdom, for people to criticize unemployed and disabled individuals, as if living on welfare is easy and people just don't want to work. Not a single one of them would trade places. This perspective results in significant long-term mental health issues for the long-term unemployed, and it can completely and often irreversibly disrupt your life, including relationships, social life, career, finances, and more. I don't believe enough people understand how detrimental it can be not to work. Story 5. A hot shower and access to water in general. Access to basic needs, medicine, and a drugstore within a few miles. Heat, libraries, and outdoor space are my true luxuries that I appreciate, with plants and furniture. Story 6. Living in the first world and realizing your waste is being washed by water cleaner than half of the world drinks. We literally flush our waste with fresh, clean, drinkable water while there are people elsewhere walking miles to get whatever they can to drink. Story 7. Family support as an adult, especially in terms of housing, is crucial. Even if you live on your own, having the option to move back in with your parents instead of being homeless if something goes wrong is really significant. Story 8. In the United Kingdom, it's never having to worry about medical bills or the cost of calling an ambulance. The National Health Service isn't perfect, but it's still a privilege I never really think about. Story 9. Roof over your head, food in the cupboards, options of outfits to wear, and so on. I'm a case worker and work with a lot of homeless people, and it is heartbreakingly eye-opening. I used to complain about the ugly, old carpet in my apartment, but I have been very humbled. Story 10. The privilege of not having any food allergies or intolerances. Since I was diagnosed with celiac disease and have to eliminate gluten 100% or be in extreme pain, I learned that so many social events are food and drink related. People won't understand how hard it can be without experiencing it themselves or seeing a loved one experience this. Story 11. A working body. People look down on the disabled, but everyone is one accident, a couple more years of aging, or one little moment of fade away from becoming one of them. Story 12. That they aren't currently living in a war zone. That can change in literally 5 minutes flat, and there's not a thing any random person can do about it. Story 13. Educated parents. Something I didn't realize was such a benefit in life until I was much older. I have dated people and had friends with parents who never went to college, and in those cases, the parents didn't really plan for their kids to go to college or push them towards it. Those people have been limited in their careers and incomes because of it. I am thankful my parents went to college and set the expectation that I would too. Student loans were difficult, but my career potential has put me in a good spot in life. Story 14. Having parents who want the best for you can be a blessing. Even though some parents may not know exactly what they're doing, most have good intentions of wanting their children to grow up and do well. However, I've been involved in the fostering system, and the truly reprehensible things I've heard about what some parents do to their kids still make me nauseous, even though it was several years ago. Story 15. Being able to eat pizza without worrying about how high your blood sugar will be or how many units of insulin you have to dose. Waking up and getting ready for your day without worrying about where your blood sugar is. Going to bed without dosing insulin, basically doing anything. Diabetes is so hard. Story 16. A family support system. I generally dislike framing it as a privilege because it's what everyone should have. It should be the default. But the presence of mom and dad as mentors, protectors, and role models is invaluable. People with good parents, please appreciate them. Give your mom or dad a call if you think they raised you well. Story 17. A name that suits your location and is easy to pronounce. When people can't pronounce your name, they avoid saying it, making them less likely to try and be your friend or hire you for a job. Story 18. A house, a bed, electricity, food. I could go on. As someone who was made homeless at a young age, I learned quickly what it's like to go without basic things. Most people take these things for granted, but there are millions of people out there who aren't privileged enough to have them. Story 19. Being a parent that has family or parents who are willing to have a relationship with your child. People who have parents that babysit their children. It's a completely different life. Story 20. No major health problems. I'm about a month into recovering from a fall that necessitated a full hip replacement surgery. I would not recommend it. I'm actually doing pretty well, walking with a cane now and finally able to live on my own without help. But getting here was a challenge. I still got a month of physical therapy until I'm cleared to go back to work. And don't even get me started on the cost of this whole experience. Take care of yourself, folks. Story 21. Physical freedom. Able-bodied people have no idea how much of the world is catered to them by default and why only catering to them is BS until they suddenly need to go around with a wheelchair or a stroller. Story 22. Being able to do things for yourself, walk to the toilet so you can urinate, make yourself dinner, get a drink of water, cook your food in the way you like it cooked. Being able to go outside whenever you want, having control over what you put into your body, being pain-free, being able to exercise whenever you want, having people who can support you. Story 23. My husband never understands why I have issues at the car mechanics. He says he never has issues, but then I remind him he's not a woman. They don't talk down to you and act like you're stupid. Story 24. Even though it can be problematic, access to health insurance is important. A lot of people complain about it, and I understand that it can be a hassle and has many flaws. However, the fact that you can afford it is important and a privilege. Story 25. The ability to walk, see, hear, and have two hands. I had surgery on my foot and didn't realize what a blessing it was to have a foot when I couldn't walk normally for 2 weeks. Story 26. Your fertility and a healthy baby at the end. I've recently had a baby, and you don't really know how lucky you are until you hear other people's stories. I had a high-risk pregnancy, but in the end, I had a planned C-section and a healthy baby. Sending hugs to people and telling them not to give up. Story 27. Still having people who raised you alive into adulthood and being able to visit your childhood home. Almost all of my family have died in the past 5 years. It has been devastating, and it really feels like my childhood has well and truly died. I feel so young for it to have happened. Story 28. Youth. When I was a young man, I had liberty, but I did not see it. I had time, but I did not know it. And I had love, but I did not feel it. Many decades would pass before I understood the meaning of all three. And now, in the twilight of my life, this understanding has passed into contentment. Love, liberty, and time, once so disposable, are the fuels that drive me forward. And love, most especially, my dear. Story 29. Having parents who are financially literate is important. My wife's family isn't crazy wealthy or anything, but they taught her how to save, how to invest with certificates of deposit and bonds, how to have good credit, and when to be frugal and when to splurge for the best quality. My parents, on the other hand, didn't let me make a bank account until I was 16 or 17, never had any real talks with me about money beyond don't get a credit card, and taught me to always buy the cheapest version of anything, no matter what. Shockingly, she was much better off than I was when we met and had to teach me so much about managing money. Thankfully, I hadn't managed to get myself into too much debt at that point, and with her help, educational, not financial, we didn't share money until we were married. I paid off almost all my debt before we even got married. Without her, I'd probably be absolutely destitute. Story 30. Canada. Just imagine what would happen if Quebec decided to cut all electricity to the whole New England territory. Then Alberta cut oil to the United States, and finally British Columbia decided to stop sending softwood. And finally, Canada says that they will join Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and decided to drop the United States dollar. Story 31. Having a dishwasher, man. I didn't realize how much of a luxury it was until mine broke and I had to go back to the dark ages of hand washing everything. You ever notice how time slows down when you're scrubbing pots? It's like the universe just wants you to reflect on your life choices or something. Story 32. Driving. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And with all the poor driving posted on Reddit, there are a lot of folks with licenses who should have them revoked and face criminal charges instead. Story 33. Insurance that covers dental, vision, and hearing. These are not considered necessary rights in my state. I am allowed one emergency dental visit if I have pain in a tooth. They will not do a filling or anything other than pulling the tooth. I have to pay for my own glasses, so I only get a new pair every 3 to 5 years. I need hearing aids but cannot afford them. I understand this likely varies by state. I'm also only allowed 10 therapy sessions per year. Story 34. People who value you, even when they don't need something from you. I say people because I wish it was anyone who would. The random cashier who is genuinely kind often makes me cry. Mind you, I'm a teacher of children with the highest support needs. The other night, while I was out with a friend, his coaster came up with his drink, and I immediately put it down and salted it so it wouldn't happen again. I then realized this happens to me a lot, and I never once thought to do it for myself. Story 35. As a straight white man, I obviously have a lot of privileges. One I have been thinking about lately is just the fact that how I live my life isn't politicized. For example, I am in favor of gay marriage. But I realized that even having all these debates and discussions on the issue implies that we ought to have a say in such things. In reality, it's not our place to be involved. We have no right to tell anyone else how to live, so our opinions on those things should not be a factor. So for now, I'll continue to advocate for what's right until it's well settled that everyone has equal rights. After that, I'll do what everyone else did when I got married. Mind my own business. In summary, it's a privilege not having the way you live your life discussed, debated, argued, and politicized. Story 36. Having money. And I'm not talking about being wealthy. I mean just not being dirt poor. I have friends who think they relate to me. They'll be like, yeah, I'm so broke too, but be getting Botox and lip injections. I'm like, girl, we are not the same kind of poor. There's a difference between being inconvenienced by a flat tire and having a literal panic attack because you have no way to replace it. Story 37. I have had fibromyalgia for almost 30 years. I did not believe I had it until about 7 years ago when I developed postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome on top of it. I would give anything to feel like a normal person again. Story 38. When life is hectic and stressful, many people are quick to wish they were just left alone. There's a reason isolation is a severe form of punishment. Be kind, everyone. Be an ally. Story 39. Waking up and going about your day without pain all day. Being able to have enough energy to do everything you have to, and even maybe something extra you want to do every day. Story 40. The privilege of believing privilege does not exist. I, a black woman, literally was within feet of 3 white people in Alaska discussing this, all saying it's a made-up concept. I was astonished, and not one person thought to even ask me, someone without the privilege of white skin or a penis. Imagine being so oblivious to the struggles of various groups of people as to genuinely believe such a thing. Story 41. Responsible and mature parents plan for their children's future, equipping them for life's challenges. They teach essential skills like cooking, self-defense, setting healthy boundaries, discipline, and financial literacy. Everything needed for a successful life. Story 42. Reading all of this, I realized that 99% of the answers are not privilege but just basic human rights and normalcy. If you don't have your full health, get paid fairly for your work, and all the other things, it doesn't mean someone who has them is privileged. It simply means you were treated unfairly, had a lot of bad luck, or life has been difficult for you. It is awful and not right, and I hope nobody makes fun of you for that or thinks or treats you as less because of that. You can hate me for this, but I feel that when people say something is a privilege, it is almost hateful, as if whoever has something they don't have doesn't deserve it, didn't work for it, or is simply not worthy. Let me remind you that jealousy is okay, but don't project. Here is an example. Privilege is being born rich and not having to work a day in your life. It is not a privilege to work hard, make sacrifices to be able to earn good money, And even if others do all of that and still don't make it, it is still not a privilege. Story 43. Not having chronic pain or disabilities, being able to move, see, hear, and function without struggle, is something many people don't appreciate until they lose it. Story 44. Not having chronic pain. I do not have a chronic pain disorder, but after watching a YouTuber who had chronic pain, I realized how incredibly unbearable that situation is. And even worse, sometimes it happens for no reason at all. One day you are fine and the next you are just not. I feel so terrible for anyone who has it. Story 45. Hi. Let's do this without assuming about others and take a personal account. White woman here who isn't fragile over talking about privilege. I can walk into a store without being followed or assumed to be stealing. I can move freely in public without fear of being harassed, questioned, or harmed. I feel safe calling 911 without fear it could escalate against me. I can speak in my natural accent without fear of being judged or assumed to be less competent. I can find products such as Band-Aids, clothing, and hair care that work with my body type. I have financial privilege through generational assets, and I don't have to worry about getting a loan, housing, or a job. I have access to education and schools without needing to move or pay extra. And I have textbooks that reflect a version of white history and identity. I was encouraged to pursue a higher education and wasn't questioned if I belong there. And I don't worry about my student loans shaping my entire future. I can easily find doctors to understand and respect my identity and background, and I have access to mental health care without stigma. I never have to fear if my appearance will affect a decision on a rental, and I feel safe in my neighborhood where my home won't be targeted because of my identity. I never have to prove my citizenship, and my identity won't be legally challenged, and I can expect to not appear guilty based on my appearance or stereotype. Privilege is like having a whole pie. When someone asks for a slice, it can feel like you're losing something, when in reality, fairness means everyone gets a piece.